good to have you all here. We are letting folks into the chat. We are live on YouTube for this Mother Jones Festival. So thrilled that you all are with us today, whether it's the morning, noon, or night. It's so exciting to be a part of this global conversation on such an important topic. My name is Andrew Schwartz. I am the Director of Sustainability and Global Affairs at the Center for Earth Ethics. And it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. John Verimo, who is a member of the Spirit of Mother Jones Festival Planning Committee and also an ecologist at University College Cork. He will be launching the festival and introducing our speaker. John, I pass it over to you.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We welcome everybody here today for what I think is a very special conversation that we'll have. Today, right now, we're launching the 10th annual Spirit of Mother Jones Festival, and with the main festival being the 25th through the 28th of November in Shandon. And it's at the North Cathedral where Mother Jones was baptized as Mary Harris. So it was a woman who went through the famine in Ireland, had a family in Memphis who all died except for her of yellow fever. She lost everything else in the fire of Chicago, and then endured the Spanish flu. So she was no stranger to adversity. And in Cork, what we were trying to do is honor her origins here, honor her great work in the world, and honor her spirit that still continues through people working for social justice today. So we have a special presentation today as part of the University College Cork Community Week. And this is also a partnership with the Center for Earth Ethics in the United States in New York. And the initial idea for today's event was really inspired by an outpouring from Ireland to the Navajo and Hopi COVID-19 Fund in remembrance of the generosity extended by the Choctaw people back during the famine times. And to date, I think it's over $7.5 million has been raised for the COVID relief and trying to move toward more resilience in these communities. So it's amazing how these things continue in the bonds between the people on both sides of the ocean here. And we're honored today by the presence of two Choctaw students who are currently attending UCC on scholarship, and we'll be introducing them later. So what I'd like to do at this point is acknowledge Corinna Gore, who is the director of the Center for Earth Ethics, and just invite her to say a word or two if she would like.
Thank you so much, John. I'm just delighted to be here, and especially looking forward to hearing words from Mona Polacca, who is, among many other things, a senior fellow with the Center for Earth Ethics. And I wanted to say that the Center for Earth Ethics draws from the world's faith, wisdom, and indigenous traditions to change our value system in the world from one that is based on short-term monetary gain, no matter the pollution or the depletion of nature or the inequity, to one that perceives and measures value according to the long-term health of the whole community of life. And this is a mission and a vision that I think is very much in line with the spirit of Mother Jones. And I wanted to just recall that one of the gifts that she gave to the United States of America, coming from Cork, as you said, born there in 1837 and coming over here, was to draw attention to the child labor issue here. And I just wanted to revisit that briefly because the industrialization at the time made it so that there were all these little children going into mines and mills and factories, and many of them were killed or maimed. Obviously, they weren't going to school. And the amazing thing about Mother Jones is that she was one of the only people drawing attention to this and arguing that there should be another way. And when you look at the arguments against her campaign about child labor, they're very similar to the kinds of things people say today against our efforts to protect the environment, or our efforts to protect public health, or our desire to see land return to Native people and traditional ways of Native people honored. And those arguments were basically that it would cost too much money, that it was an intrusion of government, and also that there was some sense that the way that this fantastic wealth and industrial power was placed here had something to do with what God intended. And so I'm very moved to be with you all here, because it brings together many of these things. We really feel at the Center for Earth Ethics that we need to look at the root cause way of thinking that has gotten us into a situation where we see our world being, or the nature being assaulted around us, and the impacts of that. And we want to look at that way of thinking also in terms of the impact that it's had from the very beginning with colonization, and that way that that traditional knowledge, those ties of Indigenous people to their land, water, air, other species of life, the way that was disrespected and violence was done to it, is very much a root of all of these problems that we're facing today, including biodiversity loss and climate change and all of the rest. And so I want to say that the Center for Earth Ethics is honored to be a part of this, and really thank you for keeping that spirit of Mother Jones alive through this festival, and for focusing on these issues today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Corinna. So something else that this was an inspiration for this festival as well is there's a lot of work done around sustainability at UCC, and in many ways it's considered one of the leading institutions in the world to this regard. And we work extensively with the SDGs. But when you look at the 2030 agenda, you see that continual language about the Indigenous voice, the value to the Indigenous voice, the need for the Indigenous voice. But so many times around the table at UN meetings, there is no Indigenous voice. So another thing today is we want to hear the Indigenous voice and hear what Mona has to say, because there's wisdom there. There's profound wisdom there that in many ways has been lost in modern societies. So it's reconnecting and being able to nurture that wisdom within all of us. So without further ado, it is my honor to introduce the main speaker, Mona Polacca, who comes from the blue-green waters at the base of the Grand Canyon. She's a senior fellow in the original Caretakers program at the Center for Earth Ethics in New York. And I have had the personal good fortune of knowing her for over 30 years, and that's a blessing. Mona is an educator, facilitator, who motivates others to speak and take action, which are also the hallmarks of Mother Jones as well, taking action. Mona has led or participated in many effective initiatives related to Indigenous water issues and culturally appropriate health treatments for Native Americans. Mona is a longtime active participant in the United Nations Permanent Forum of Indigenous Peoples and a member of the International Council of the 13 Indigenous Grandmothers, which is a global alliance to bring a global alliance to bring prayer, education, and healing for Mother Earth and all her inhabitants, and for the next 7 generations. Mona is motivated by her belief that a sustainable future is not just an admirable goal, but rather objectives which are attainable through dialogue amongst today's leaders in science and spirituality, and her own practices grounded in Havasupai, Hopi, and Tiwa traditions. So Mona, we'd love to hear what you have to share with us today. And you'll need to unmute your microphone. Okay, Mona, can you hear us okay?
of all, I just like to greet each and every morning.
Do you think, Mona, it might be best for her to turn off her video?
I'd like to greet. I'll try it.
Okay.
I just
Okay,
want
that's
to
not.
greet everyone. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me okay?
Not really, Mona. It's not. It's distorted.
Hear me okay? Is it now? Is it okay now?
That sounded better. Yeah, that's better.
Is that better? Okay. Okay. I'd just like to greet everyone and give thanks for allowing me to take up some of your time today, and especially to the Mother Jones Festival and my good friend here, John Verimo. I'm grateful that you reconnected with me and were able to share this time and a few words that I'm sharing with all of you today. I come from the Hualapai people, the people of the blue-green water down at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, and from the Hopi and Tewa, the people in the Pueblo nations of the people of peace, and the people of the tobacco, the Tewa people, the warrior people. And I'm grateful that you all are acknowledging this time, and I'd like to acknowledge the Choctaw students that are joining us today, Claire and Austin, and I'm grateful that there's been a path and a connection that's been made, a good relationship that's been made among the people of Ireland with the tribal nations and of the Choctaw and the Navajo and Hopi people, the exchange and the support that's been given at this time of great challenge with the COVID-19. And it's wonderful that you're able to find it in your heart to reciprocate the generosity that was given by the Choctaw many years ago. And so I want to acknowledge that and give thanks. Today, everywhere in the world, there are Indigenous people who are have continued to live in the way that they were instructed on how to live in this world and to survive and to take care of all of the Mother Earth and all the things that are provided for us from her, as well as all of these creations. And so I'm grateful to you that we could have this time to talk about this. We can say that Indigenous people are truly adaptive civilizations that align our ethics with the ways of the earth. And there's this thinking that a civilization that ignores the deep constraints of its world will find itself in exactly the situation we face now, on the threshold of making the planet inhospitable to humankind and other species. And so this is what we're facing today, which is partly why we are talking today about our reconnection to Mother Earth. It's restoring and reconnecting to the vital parts of life that all living beings on Mother Earth depend on. The water, the air, the sun, and Mother Earth. All of these things, they are what give us life. And not only that, but also to acknowledge that life is not only just for us, but it's also for all other living things, the plant life, the animal life, all of the beings that live inside the water. And so we are acknowledging that as Indigenous people, we were given instructions that we are to watch over and take care of our life here on the earth and all the things that give us life. And so some of the questions I guess I'd like for you to kind of reflect on is, what is our best current understanding of the nature of the world? What is that understanding that we might create an accordance with the ecological and moral principles? And then imagine the epic that is, it's of the earth rather than against the earth. That realizing and understanding that our connection is our survival. And it's like all of our, the science, the religious traditions can provide insights in converging on sharing these understandings and understanding the nature of the world. And the most basic understanding is that the earth is our home. It will always be our only source of shelter, sustenance, and inspiration. There's no other place for us to go. We all have our creation stories, our original instructions on how to live on Mother Earth. And some may say, well, I have no idea what the creation stories are. But then at the same time, if you just think about basic survival and what it takes to have what you need for basic survival, those are the most basic original instructions that we've been given on how to have a good relationship with the water and the air and even the fires that we use, and our Mother Earth, where all of our life, plant life and our animal life come from. And we're all part of that cycle. And just having that understanding as part of your creation. Indigenous people have their creation stories. They have places where they can go to and they can say, this is the place where our people came from. Indigenous people are indigenous because they haven't left their homes, their original home places. They have not left and gone somewhere else. They can trace their family line, their lineage, their ancestry, all the way back to that place where they are on their indigenous traditional lands and territories. And so I know I can do that. I can go back to Grand Canyon, into the canyon, to the Havasupai land, and I can go to the place where all of my ancestors are, where they lay. I can see my family tree there. And it's a wonderful feeling to be able to do that. And at the same time, I believe that we all can do that. We all have that place of origin, our culture of origin, that is important to reflect on and to be able to use it as a foundation about your own ancestry and your connection to the earth, Mother Earth. And what were the things that your people were known for or were given, the kinds of foods they eat, the kinds of plant medicine they use, and the kinds of foods that they had from the land that is of their indigenous place of origin. And so those are some of the things to think about. As human beings, we don't consider ourselves commodities, or then let's not think of all of the other life forms as commodities. We as indigenous people don't think of them that way, that they have their ways of being, they have their own intelligence, their own path or urging towards life, and they follow that. And so that's one of the other areas that we reconnect, and we develop some sense of understanding about how we as human beings are not the only ones who have this connection to our Mother Earth and all of the necessities of basic living. And then also that it's important for us to not be today, just like me being here where I am and speaking to you there in Ireland and perhaps other listeners, that we are able to communicate with one another. And in that communication, the way I was told was that, there would come a time when we would see much destruction of Mother Earth, and that the indigenous people would be called upon to share their way of knowledge, their way of the original instructions, because there would be those who forgot. They became disconnected. Their mind has become disconnected from their body. And in that way, they become disconnected with the sacred connection with Mother Earth. And so the indigenous people have been told that there would come a time when the indigenous people would be called upon to share or to give a gentle reminder about the sacred original instructions, that we are to maintain a good, strong, healthy balance with Mother Earth. And so these are some of the basic instructions that have been given. And then we also, as human beings, we can adapt our behaviors. We can adapt our behaviors to achieve a balance again. And we when we're at our best, we can achieve many good things, and developing even our cultural systems, and in relationship to the other living beings and the ecosystems, so that they can flourish. And so in part of the developing cultural systems, I believe it's in motion now. I believe it is in motion with the kind of work that Mother Jones did. It's in motion with many of the different gatherings or sharing of knowledge of the biodiversity of Mother Earth, and that there's a great movement to preserve and protect it. And so we are in that process now, and part of that is a cultural change from what has been generally and widely accepted with the industrialization. And so we are now in that time of like an awakening of developing a culture, and a culture that moves back to having this relationship. And so it's important that we continue to move in that direction. And from what I was told is that, that to focus on hope, to focus on that the goodness that we as human beings have of being moral, having moral responsibility towards our life. And we as Indigenous people, we don't just think about ourselves here today. When we talk about having a vision, having vision isn't just looking at what we see right here in front of us. Having vision, having hope is looking beyond, even further than the eye can see, even further than what your mind can even imagine, even further than the last generation of your family that may be existing here today. Children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. Further than that, we say you have to still think beyond that. Think about, we say often, the next 7 generations. But even with each generation that comes, they're looking further. So it's this, having this vision, having this hope, and having consideration and compassion for life ahead that's still coming. And so every day we're given this blessing of each day to get up and greet the day and go out and do the things that give us a sense of purpose in life. And we continue to do that, but then we also have to continue to have a thought to be able to see, to be able to hear, and be able to feel for all of life, not just my body, my own existence, but all of life, because we are all interconnected, and we all have this basic need that is fulfilled by this connection, the sacred connection. And so those are some of the thoughts I wanted to share with you, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to John. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mona. And what we'd like to do now is have a moment for our 2 Choctaw scholars to say a few words, and then we'd like to come back to you, Mona, for question and answers. So in the meantime, if you can use the chat stream and put your questions in there, we can get to them in due course. So we have Claire Young and Austin West, who have joined us here in Cork about a month ago, they said, and so they're getting used to being here now. And so I don't know if Claire, if you want to go first, if you have any words you'd like to share, or even question you may have for Mona as well.
No, I just wanted to go ahead and introduce myself. Halito sa Hochifoyat Claire Green Young. I'm in Tilly, Wright City, Oklahoma. Micha Chatasia. Hello, I'm Claire Green Young. I'm from Wright City, Oklahoma, and I'm Choctaw. I'm very happy to be here with you all today and to have shared space with you, Mona. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here and share such amazing thoughts with us. It's always good to be in the presence of other Indigenous folks. So Yakoki, for sharing that with us. Yeah, and I didn't have too much I wanted to say. Very informal for me, but I just wanted to share my appreciation for this discussion. You know, I know there were a lot of words at the beginning about the effects of colonization and how that's really impacted the way that Indigenous folks are represented and acknowledged, especially in terms of how we take care of the land that we live on. And so oftentimes as original caretakers of the land, with knowledge that's been passed down through generations, our voices are overlooked. So it's really special for me to see you all coming together to listen to Mona in such reverence. Yes, I think for me and Austin in particular, being Choctaw people, we come from a history of removal, forced removal from our homelands. And for generations, both of our families have resided in Oklahoma. So in one way, we have this inherent draw and tie and feelings of home related to Oklahoma. And then as Mona said, we have creation stories which tie us to our original homelands in Mississippi. And so I think also acknowledging the fact that you know, there's this complex nature of relationships that Indigenous peoples of all different backgrounds have with land is really important in this conversation as well, when we're thinking about colonization. But I don't want to take up too much space. So again, Yakoki, thank you all.
Thank you very much for your words, Claire. It's very heartfelt. Austin, do you have some words you'd like to share?
Halito sa Hochefuyat Austin West. Hello, my name is Austin West. I just wanted to give a big yakoki to Mona and Claire for their words. I wanted to sort of reemphasize something that Mona said about reconnecting to land, that whenever we're reconnecting to nature, we're not reconnecting to something that's outside of culture, that we're reconnecting to something that's integral to every aspect of culture, every aspect of who we are. If we look at Choctaw culture in particular, if we look at our creation stories, one of our creation stories is that we arose out of the earth. If you look at our regalia, you see symbols that are supposed to convey respect for the earth and the land. If you look at our dances, we have animal dances that mimic things that occur in the natural environment. And so every aspect of our culture revolves around the environment and the land. And so if we're reconnecting to that, we're not reconnecting to something outside of ourselves. We're reconnecting to something that's deeply within us in every part of who we are, in every cultural aspect of who we are. So that's all I wanted to share. And once again, a big yakoki to Claire and Mona.
Okay, well, I have to say that I think we're very lucky to have Claire and Austin here at UCC, and they do bring profound insight with them here. So this, I guess, is the beauty of these sorts of exchange programs. So thank you, and always feel welcome here, please. So we can move on to questions, and I did receive one question from that What does Mona see as the greatest single threat today to life and the natural environment, including the very existence of life on the planet? So Mona, did you hear? Are you with us? Or it
Yes,
looks like you're
yes.
muted. Okay, there we go. Okay, good.
Can you, okay. Yes, oh my goodness. The greatest threat, I believe, is the degradation of the water. The waters that are being polluted with no regard by many things, by all of the like industrialization, the dumping of contaminants into the water with no regard for the other water users in the area, the ones that live in the water, the plants, the fish, the water animals, as well as, you know, the plants of the earth, all of life, even including us, are affected by the poisoning of the water and no regard for the right to have fresh water, as well as the commodification of water for drinking, as well as for use in other ways that are very wasteful, and there isn't any kind of means of replenishing that water. Once it becomes contaminated, it's basically useless. It has no life-giving elements in it anymore. So that's a big concern for me.
John, you're on mute.
Thank you. This is actually a question for Claire and Austin about what you hope to learn and convey during your time in Cork.
Yes. So I am currently studying, I'm getting my master's in museum studies here in Cork. And I'm really just kind of hoping to learn about diverse perspectives in the field. Ultimately, I am looking to obtain my PhD in tribal history, and you know, be a bit closer to home. And it's a wonderful experience to be here in Ireland. I think for me, the opportunity to be on scholarship and receive my master's was a large draw. But at the same time, I am a person of mixed Choctaw Irish ancestry, and I grew up in the heart of my tribal nation without really any connection to the other side of my identity and who I am, which has been difficult to navigate as a white presenting Indigenous person. And so even deeper than my education, I am also hoping to respectfully connect to the land here, and get to know myself in a deeper way before, you know, kind of making the journey back home to Turtle Island.
Austin, okay, yeah.
Thank you, Claire. I just say I'm here studying for a Master of Science in International Public Policy and Diplomacy. And the main thing that I want to learn is sort of how colonialism affected the Irish because of both of our histories of colonialism. So that's probably the primary thing that I want to learn is Irish culture, Irish language, how they've resisted colonialism. And then what I would like to convey to people is simply that, Indigenous people are still around in the United States, especially with the education curriculum. We're often not depicted after the 1900s. And so it's just a reminder to people that we're still around. We still have our own ideas, our own cultures, our own languages, and we still have so much wisdom to offer.
No, that's beautiful, both of you. And something that Claire said too that resonates, because Shannon and I have had this conversation of coming to Ireland to understand our Indigenous roots from what we learned while we were living in the Americas. So it's it is there's a lot here, and you don't have to scratch very far beneath the surface to start seeing things. A question for Mona. What are some of the issues, struggles maybe around water in Arizona along the river and different areas in Hopi land and Diné land and Havasupai? Is there? Can you go into any of those? Sharing any of that?
Sure, I'd like to share. Yes, there is a lot going on. Arizona is primarily a desert land. We do have forest lands as well, but our main body of water is the Colorado River, and that's where I was born and raised, along the Colorado River. What has happened right now is that there was a time when the Colorado River flowed into the Gulf of Mexico. So the water went all the way from Arizona into Mexico. But today there is no water flow of the river. The river doesn't reach down there because of all of the water is being diverted to different parts of Arizona. And so what's happened is that, so we have the municipal, the cities that require water, that take water from the Colorado River. We have agriculture. And as of late, we have more mining that's occurring, that's going to be taking water, as well as development, urban development. And so the Colorado River is over allocated. There are 21 tribes in the state of Arizona, and the tribes we have what we call water rights. So there's a certain amount of the water, they call it acre feet of water, that is allocated to the tribes to use for, their domestic as well as their, they also do agriculture. So they all have their water rights. Right now we have been in a drought. The Colorado River runoff from the snowpack due to climate change has reduced the amount of water that's flowing in the Colorado River. Also along the Colorado River are numerous dams, and that come all the way down the river. And what's happening right now is the waters behind the dam, like Lake Mead, even Lake Powell, the water levels have dropped. And there's these are hydroelectric dams. And so they're losing, their water levels have dropped. The lakes have some, I just heard yesterday, something like about 25 feet. The level has dropped 25 feet in Lake Powell. And then Lake Mead, I believe it's about the same. And so they're concerned that they don't have enough water behind the dam to even produce the kind of electricity they routinely produce. So right now that's a big concern. But my big concern has to do with situations like for the Havasupai. We are right now have been in an effort to stop uranium mining that is occurring above the canyon. And the uranium mining also requires use of water. Uranium mining is, the risk of a spill of their tailing ponds, or that could then flood into the Grand Canyon, into Supai. And the tribe is a very small tribe. The land base of Havasupai is 1 mile wide and 3 miles long. That's the land base down in the village of the Havasupai in the canyon. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that if there's a spill, that is, we say the end of the Havasupai. So it would contaminate all the water, not only the Havasupai, but then because of the water flows would also go into the Colorado River, and all of the river could be from that point be completely contaminated. So there's efforts to stop that. The other thing that's happening right now that I'm working on is with the Hualapai Tribe, another little tribe that has a sacred spring. It's a hot spring, and it's a medicine spring that the people go to, have gone to throughout their entire history. We say from time immemorial, to go there for their healing, and it's still used today for healing, bringing the people out to the land there. It's called Choya Ranch, and there's a hot spring there. Well, right now there's a proposal to do lithium and copper mining in the area, and the concern that the tribe has is that any kind of drilling that's done, or any disturbance of the earth on or near that area, is going to collapse the hot spring system. And so there's efforts to, get support to stop, that proposal from moving forward and getting the permits to do that. There's other citizens that live around there, non-native people, and they too their water will be impacted. The thing about it is that it's been shown through a study that there isn't even enough water in the wells they're planning on drilling. There's not enough water to meet the demand that they will have for their mining operations, yet they're still moving forward with it. So we're making an effort to stop that. There's another place called Oak Springs, which is on the San Carlos Apache Reservation, which is being proposed to be one of the largest copper mines in the world. And that's going to destroy their sacred ground. It's their holy ground. It's their they call it Oak Flats. It's a sacred place where they do their rites of passage for their young women, and they do all this ceremonial work and get their medicines and from that area. And that's going to be completely destroyed. There's oak trees that are hundreds and hundreds of years old that are going to be destroyed. So those are some of the concerns right now that I think of.
That's a very exhaustive list, and that's just the start of it. So that's it really is a lot of work to do. And I think this next question from Claire maybe kind of even ties into it from a perspective. And she said, Mona, as an Indigenous person, I often find it difficult to navigate the modern world, especially when residing in cities or living away from home. Have you any experience with this? And do you have any thoughts or words of advice?
Oh, yes. You know, I did my undergraduate work in Richmond, Virginia, Virginia Commonwealth University, and that's where I met John Verimo. And I believe I was, from what I heard, I think I was one of, I believe, two Native American students at BCU. And so I totally get what you're talking about. And of course, it was interesting because the first thing I usually do whenever I go into an urban setting is to locate the Native American people. And it was funny because one day I was on campus, I hadn't met any. I was told that I was in the School of Social Work, and the Dean of Social Work told me there was another Native American in there on campus in the social work program. So, but one day I was walking down the sidewalk, and pretty soon I heard somebody calling me, and I stopped and I looked around because I didn't know anybody, and all of a sudden here's this guy jumps off a wall and runs over to me and introduces himself, and he was the other Native American, which was from the Chickahominy, one of the tribes in Virginia. So yeah, it made me feel at home because then I was able to meet his community, and they're the ones who were who welcomed the settlers. And they gave me, I said, well, if this is the kind of welcome they gave to those settlers, no wonder those settlers didn't want to go home. It was good. They treated me really good, and I felt at home. And then I met John, and he was a big help to me in my studies. But yeah, I seek out people that are, you know, that know other people, or you know how it is with us natives. We always find a connection with some relative that knows a relative who knows a relative who knows a relative, and so that's how I connect. And I wish you all the best in your studies and in all that you're planning to do with your, you know, the skills and knowledge that you're gaining there. And same to you, Austin. It's you know, it's a big step to leave home, away from all of the familiar things and loved ones, and all the tribal celebrations. And but you know, it's not really that much time. In a little while, you'll be graduating and celebrating and saying, I did it, instead of saying, I wish I did it. So let that be your motivation. Keep going and enjoy your time. Blessings to you.
That was beautiful. We have another question here, that the Irish are often described as a forest people without the forest. How can we reconnect to our land, I guess, without forests? Because Ireland used to be almost completely covered by forest, and now it's one of the least forested parts of Europe. And that was the question from John Russell. So any thoughts on that, Mona?
You know, I've been to Ireland, and I've been out to I went to some of the circles, and also to the, I think it's called the Grange. And there were a few, to me it looked like they were old trees. There were trees there in different places that I went to, and I suppose that the places that are still there are carrying that same energy, the energy that we call them the old ones, that they connected with. And what I was told by some of the elders is that even though it's not there, you still go there and you still go ahead and acknowledge that there's a sacred energy there, and you still go there and make an offering of some water, or even to offer a little bit of maybe some kind of food, even a piece of bread. But offering and acknowledging is what they encourage us to do, even though it's not there, because there's many of these sacred places that have been destroyed and are still being targeted for, removal or destruction.
Okay, well, thank you, Mona. And let's see, we've got about 5 minutes left. We could do one more sort of a quick answer if you still have, if you're open for that, and then we'll close things. But is that okay, Mona? Yeah.
Okay.
And it says, basically, do you have suggestions for us as individuals to help Mother Earth during this time of climate crisis? So really people wanting to take action.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would look around and see what is being done there in your community, and begin to, like I mentioned, there's a cultural change, or as one of my elders says, he says that we must take our own action in our own basic surroundings, and be aware of what is happening. Be aware, where is your water source? What's happening to it? Are there, plans to, to build some sort of industrial operation that's going to impact that water source? Be aware of it. Be aware of also to the places where you can go for, like for clean, fresh air. Be aware of that. Be aware of where you can go to gather your plants, herbs, plants of the earth, foods of the earth, where the animals are. Be aware of those things. Be aware of where you are getting even things like your wood source. And I was also told to know how to start a fire without a match, which is something I haven't done yet, but working on it. But those are the basic things, to just be aware of your own immediate surroundings, and have a voice. Have a voice about those things, about what's happening to them. Don't just sit back and let others make decisions about what's going to sustain your life. That's what I would say.
Well, thank you for that. And I get it's time to wrap things up now. We have two minutes left. So what I'd like to say is thank you, everybody, for being here today. Thank you for everyone who is here from the Center for Earth Ethics, and hopefully there will be ways to work together with UCC in the future. The Mother Jones Festival is officially launched and in motion, and please come join us. We'll be at the Maldron Hotel in Shandon, the 25th through the 28th of November, COVID conditions permitting. So, we want to keep everybody safe, and also hopefully we'll be able to do that. But this will be some more events around social justice, but also around issues, in Ireland. And some of this will be broadcast live or in person, face to face, hopefully. But there will also be pre-recorded content on Cork Community TV. And a couple of highlights there are about the centenary of Tig Berry, and on Mariel McSweeney as well as an unlikely revolutionary. So those are have promised to be very interesting talks. And last year we couldn't present the Spirit of Mother Jones Award. So this year we'll be presenting for last year, which was Antoinette Keegan, for her efforts around the Stardust disaster back in 1981. So those will be some activities. Hope you can join us in one way or another on Facebook, on Twitter. So this information is out there. There's also a website for that. So hopefully we can see some of you there. And as we say, I guess, I can't say I know a lot of Irish, but Slán go fóill is hope to see you soon, and so bye for now. And take care, and thank you again, everybody, for being here.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.